Kia ora team and welcome. I'm Reuben from Link Academy, and in this session we're talking bank reconciliation methods, supplier prepayments. So in this scenario we have prepaid for some services to a supplier. So perhaps we're paying a deposit before we receive some goods, or we're paying some sort of deposit prior to receiving some services. So let's take a look at how to reconcile that in our bank account. So to reconcile a supplier prepayment in our bank account, we want to click on the Reconcile button, and we'll go and find the funds that are leaving our bank account, and we want to tell Xero that this is actually a supplier prepayment. So there is one I prepared earlier around on the next page, Bayside wholesale prepayment. So here I've paid a supplier $800, all right, and what I would typically do would be finding and matching, but I'm unlikely to find an invoice that represents this value, so it's unlikely to be an $800 invoice because this is for some services I've yet to get, so they haven't invoiced me for yet. So what we're going to do instead is click on this little button here, Add Details. Excellent. Now, see where it says Spent As? This is the tricky bit, so make sure you get this part right. We're going to change that from direct payment. We don't want to choose direct payment because that wouldn't sit in our accounts payable. We want to choose that. We want to choose from this list prepayment, okay, and that's going to sit in our accounts payable as a record to say that we have prepaid for some services here. Excellent. So it's brought up the contact name, the date of that prepayment. I can enter in anything I like in here. All that prepayment's just populated from my banking information, but I could say prepayment for product. Something like that, $800, and I put that to something like supplier prepayments, whatever sort of current asset account I have for that. And there's no GST on there because the GST will be on the invoice that the supplier eventually sends me. Great, so a few different ways of treating that. If you're at all confused, talk to your accountant. Fantastic, so I put that to North, and then we're going to click Save. That's that, so we're reconciling that line and creating a prepayment. Too easy. Now let's see the effect of that in our accounts payable. So if we come into Accounts and Purchases and click on Awaiting Payment, what we will notice is that along with all of our other bills, we will have this prepayment sitting in here saying that we've paid this supplier $800. So that's really cool that we can see that in amongst our accounts payable. But how do we allocate that now? So let's travel forward in time, and we've made our prepayment, made our deposit, and Bayside Wholesale has gone and delivered our goods, and accompanying those goods was a packing slip and an invoice. So on that invoice it said $840 GST inclusive, and we go, great. What part of that do I need to pay now? So to allocate that, firstly, when we go to create that invoice, if I were to create that from scratch, you actually get prompted, which is pretty cool. If we it looks a bit like this. So let's imagine I've received my bill and I'm typing that up, and I've forgotten all about the fact that I've prepaid these people, or perhaps it's a completely different person doing it. We'll say that it's a due date of next week, and we put in a product as discussed, product delivery 1 times, and we'll do 4 times $400 units, something like that, and be cost of goods sold. So here's where we put that to our expense account, and we'll put that to North. Great. So buying some product here to on sell. I'll click Approve. So nothing too special there. Wait for the spinning wheel. Just thinking about it. I give up on that. Okay. What should happen there is that we get a pop-up to say, hey, there's actually a credit open for these people. So that hasn't happened in this case, so we'll go and allocate that manually. All right. So this is the best way to allocate a supplier prepayment. Cool. So see where it says PP here. Click on that prepayment. And under prepayment options, you want to click allocate credit. And if you've got multiple invoices like we do for this scenario, we can allocate this $800 out across our different invoices. So here's my $800, and I'm going to click allocate credit, like so. So what that's done is it's closed out my prepayment. And if I come back to my bills now, that $840 invoice for Bayside Wholesale, let's go to awaiting payment. Here we go. Bayside Wholesale, $40 remaining. Yeah, so here was the original invoice, and if you look real closely, you can see a little orange mark on it. That's showing that there's a prepayment attached to that. And it's saying $840 invoice that we've received, and the prepayment allocated to it with $40 remaining. Fantastic. We can then go and organise the payment of that remaining $40. So what we covered there was the best way to reconcile a supplier prepayment in your bank account. As you can see, the reconciliation step is really easy. It creates that prepayment for you, but what we also went on to do was I showed you how to allocate that prepayment to a supplier invoice and close that out or reduce it by the value of that prepayment.